very much, Bob. That was fantastic. Could I ask Richard and David to join you up here? And we'll have a roving mic with Paula, who's there, and we've got a few minutes for questions.
Am I going up or is it?
You can bring your chauffeur if you like. Okay. Questions from the floor. Always takes a while for someone over here.
Yeah, good morning, Karen Smith from the Defence Team Centre. I was interested in, David, your presentation. One of the things that we're part of here in the state is the cluster management group and the clusters that are starting to emerge in a range of different industries. In terms of the technology and the multiplier effect, one of the things we're starting to investigate is business model innovation. I wondered if you'd have a view on that.
I think that's very important. So I talked perhaps primarily about developing the individual people and the organisation in the sense of its culture and so on. But I think you're absolutely right that the business model innovation perhaps it is a part of that wider organisational structure and culture, and that's extremely important as well. We develop new and innovative ways to actually go about doing our business, whether it's in defence or other sectors like the resources, so that we're operating in the most up-to-date and efficient way possible, as well as generating good ideas, and it's all parts of the business need to be continually innovating and looking for new and improved ways of doing what they do. And I think the clusters in areas like defence is a good example of new approaches to creating a sort of size and scale that allow us to be operating at the bleeding edge of technology and so on. So I think things like the Defence Teaming Centre are a very, very good and innovative way of approaching the way we do business in that sector in South Australia.
Thanks for everybody's presentation. Bob, I wanted to ask you about two things. One was about risk and the other one was problem identification. So, we've got lots of people with good ideas and good training and understanding, but sometimes it's just difficult to know what are the issues that are being faced on site. And I know you said about getting on site, but it's not always easy. So, if you've got any insights into problem identification. And the other one was, you said, I can't remember the exact words, but you said take some risks or some measured risks. But it seems to me in a couple of those examples, your risks were quite high when you talked about putting your home on the line to buy the computer and those sorts of things. Just maybe some insights into how you put a measured risk in place.
Yes. In terms of the problem, it is always most valuable to have a customer's input because he knows the problem better than you. So we'll often sit in the office and say, oh, there's a problem, we want to solve it. But our solution won't be anywhere near as good unless we involve a customer. We'll often get it wrong. In fact, so we'll solve the wrong problem. We'll think we're solving the problem, but we'll actually solve the wrong problem. And the customer will always know the key thing that hurts. And if you solve that problem, then work backwards. So it's really important to involve other people. You can just dream it up yourself, you'll get it wrong all of the time. And in a sense, this day, talking to the mine sites with the people with the day-to-day problems, they're the people to talk to. Because they're today's problems, and they have an immediate impact if you solve them, and a financial impact straight away if you solve them. Like with the eyesight drive system, it only takes someone 15 minutes to do what used to take 3 hours. Well, that has an immediate impact on the number of people you have to employ, and also has a huge impact on safety considerations, because no one has to get out of the vehicle. On a mine site in Australia, if someone gets out of the vehicle, they cannot be alone. There has to be 2 people present. So immediately it doubles up. So if you keep a person in the vehicle, that's only 1 person. And then you do it for less time, and by the time he's finished, he's actually done the survey. He doesn't have to do any more work, he can just go back to the office and start working on it. In terms of risk, when I bought that computer back in 1977, I was pretty driven, which you like. And if I look back at it now with grey hair and whatever, I'd say maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I did it. And I can remember the night they delivered the computer, and I went back to work that night and said, well, I wonder if this is actually going to work. And we went from a mainframe to a mini, had to put some software on that night, and all of a sudden the plotter started drawing lines. And I said, okay, we're right, we're over. But up until that time, I actually didn't know if it was going to really work. So it was a bit of a risk. But I was 20-something, so there's a lot more life to do. I wouldn't do it now. Because knowing what I know, but that's why I say you trust young people to go forward. You know? You've got to enable people. You're constrained by what you can afford, right, basically. So I could afford to lose my house, basically. That's what it come down to. And that was the limit. Okay, thank you.
Tom, I've neglected to invite you
Ask
up.
a question, Bob.
Well, I was actually going to say, if anyone wants to ask a question of the Treasurer, we'll direct it through the Chair.
I was fascinated by your talk about risk. In the United States, going bankrupt doesn't have the same social stigma it does here. In fact, the laws almost incentivise entrepreneurs who do go bankrupt never get started again because they almost reward risk. Do you think we've got enough to reward entrepreneurs in Australia?
Oh, well, Australia has this dreadful cultural cringe, and it's very strong in Adelaide, for example, where business people who are successful aren't necessarily fated very well, and that's fine, you don't need anything of that. But if you fail, you're mocked. You know, we knew he was going to fail. Yeah, he shouldn't have done it. You know, I shouldn't have backed that horse. I knew he was going to lose. So we're fairly negative on that, and that holds a lot of people back. And the reality is, you just got to ignore it and go for it. And, you know, and I've been mocked by employees and ex-employees for lots of failures and things we tried, bits of software. I've got probably 100 bits of software we've written that are junk or sitting on the shelf somewhere waiting for the market. And that'll never come. But out of that, you actually continue to evolve and get better ideas. So you just do it. Now, a lot of it comes down to personality, I suppose. But you do have to actually believe in what you have to do. And if you can find someone who wants the product, well, you've got the yin and yang of the problem. If that person's going to then pay you once you've got the solution, well, you're away. Because they're never going to be unique in the mining industry. There might be a mine in Brazil or a mine in Chile. We have a very big operation in South America, well over 100 people in South America. All basically selling products made in South Australia. Thank you.
Questions? Go this way. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just a question for Richard. Richard, given the technology and innovation you presented today and the challenges in South Australia around resources at depth, what do you see as is there a disruptive technology that you see coming that's going to allow us to cost effectively extract those minerals from the ground? What's it going to take?
Well, actually the biggest issue is finding high quality deposits. You know, if you find high grade deposits, we can make money out of them. And the problem is we keep recycling the same old projects. So I am passionate about the greenfields exploration and better, more tier 1 deposits driving productivity. So I actually think that's the root answer. But if we insist on dusting off the same old projects time and time again that are shown to, not have any bathing trunks on when the tide goes out, that there are cheaper technologies, and in mining it's going to be deep block caving. That's proving to be successful. So no doubt deep block caving will play a role. But the more fundamental role is having the best quality deposits. Then you get the investment, then you get productivity through the cycle. Sorry.
Hello. In my roles in the drilling industry, I'm travelling from state to state, and I'd have to say it's a great pleasure to hear 4 speakers say something really positive about innovation and going forward. I think it's the first time it's happened to me in a fair while to be somewhere where that was the view, and that was a great thing. Thank you. I think that there's a lot of doom and gloom talked about at the present, and we all know these things are cyclical, because you have to have been there long enough to have seen the cycles come through a few times, I suppose. But what do you think, all of the speakers, or any of the speakers, what do you think is the best risk we could take at the minute to move public perception as well as fact about the doom and gloom? Go for it.
A slightly unconventional answer to that, and I think one of the risks that we can take is to really focus on changing our education system. Because I think from the time that the children first start school, we train them not to take risks, and the pathway to success in education is to do what you're told and reproduce the answers that the teacher expects. So by the time people, in fact even at university we do the same thing, so that by the time people have graduated, they've spent 15 or 16 years learning how not to take risks. And so from a very sort of broad perspective, we need to start teaching people how to be comfortable with risk-taking and being open to new ideas. And that's it's a long-term strategy, but it's something that fundamentally needs to change if in 20 years' time we want a culture of risk-taking and so on, as you were indicating.
My answer is a bit the same as my previous answer. One great discovery would shift people's views. Discovery drives the mining industry, and if we made one great discovery in Australia, preferably South Australia, then that risk would have paid off, and people's entire perception would turn around pretty quickly.
Richard, I'm not going to let you off the hook. DET's been going for a few years now, and there was very much a focus on looking for more living dams. You mentioned hematite and those sorts of things. But things are moving along fairly quickly, and there's great opportunity for the geology of South Australia to be reset virtually under our feet, not necessarily out in the Western Gore and not necessarily at 1,000 metres depth. Is the DET adapting to that potential? Because I think we can bring Chilean geology to South Australia, and we can bring Kalgoorlie geology to South Australia. There's evidence there, and there's probably a bigger return in addressing those issues than saying that the next discovery is going to be deep or that it's going to be out in an area that's been overlooked. They're both very commendable, and appreciate the government's copper incentive strategy. That's certainly the answer to the last question. That is going to change public perception. But I think DET needs to be flexible in what it's trying to target. In principle, what you're doing is great with the drilling, looking for vectors, etc. But it's got to be done in the right place.
John, I couldn't agree more, and first acknowledge that investigators have been great supporters of DET CRC, so thanks for that. Early on you're right, the sort of original vision and mission of DET CRC, let's find more stuff at 1 kilometre or 2 kilometres depth. That's not actually what we're doing. I mean, our initial drill rig only drills to 500 metres. I think John and I would both agree there are probably plenty of good return on investment discoveries to be made at 100 metres or 200 metres of transported cover. So absolutely, that's where we should focus. We should focus for the lowest hanging fruit. In terms of whether we go Western Gawler or Nullarbor, DET CRC technology is location agnostic. It's not we're technology, we'll follow the vectors, so we're location agnostic, but we are focusing on those shallower deposits first, and really the crux is to try and define those vectors around the deposits. That's the crux, and I actually think we'll get into a virtuous circle, because as we drill more, we'll better define the vectors that we actually need to follow. So I completely agree. Going for giant deep deposits is not the only way to go. There are easier to be found shallow deposits. I think our technology is bang on for it. I'm happy to leave the true explorationists like you to work out where the technology should be deployed.
We've got time for one last question, Paul. Yes, we've got to take her up the back.
Joe Radford, Terrell, Australia. First of all, I'd like to congratulate everyone up there. I'm a proud South Australian. I think it's fantastic. I've just been to China. I've seen the celebration that the Chinese have of their minerals industry with displays and people coming together to really promote it. I suppose my question is for you, Bob. What advice would you give a South Australian company that has a very high value resource in a, I don't want to say it, a controversial area which conflicts with other industries in the state?
I do deals. Bring in partners, but keep control. Control is everything. So bring in minority partners, someone with deep pockets, Chinese, Japanese, and where there's a complementary match of skill sets, your skill sets on the technical side, let their skill set be on the finance side or the processing side, and the two of you together make a whole, but keep control. So, or bring in two minority players, 20% each, so you've got 60%, they've got 20, you get 20. That would be my approach.
And I just might throw my pen's work in, because I think controversial areas raises one of the really big challenges for our industry that needs innovation, which is how we actually get over the hump of engaging community and people seeing the benefit. And it's sort of interesting thinking about the Nuclear Royal Commission or the development of, new energy. The big stumbling block is, well, there's a whole lot of technical stumbling blocks, but it's the other bit that we don't see as core business that is equally recognised, I think, as a challenge. And I mean, I think part of the innovation, we've run out of time, but I'd love at another point to have a conversation around how do we re-envision mining and the way we do it to actually take away some of those challenges, be it environmental impact or the way we deal with waste, and pushing down grade we know exacerbates the amount of volume that we're dealing with. So innovation will actually give commercial outcomes. It'll deal with the external as well as the internal challenges, I think. Could I ask everyone again to thank our four speakers? It's been a really... So thank you very much. Really pleased on behalf of RESA to see such a good turnout. We've found this format has actually worked really well. We'd be keen to get feedback from people on how we've managed it and how we might do it better, including topics for the future. So don't feel shy, come and talk to myself or Phil or any of the RESA staff. The PACE Supply Chain Development Program, announced and launched by the Treasurer this morning, is a program delivered by RESA and AusMine for the South Australian Government. The Develop program, delivered by RESA, will focus on building your readiness and ability to successfully compete within and win within the resources sector. And we very much understand that's within a South Australian and an international context. That's the markets we all play in. The Extend program delivered by AusMine will turbocharge your entry into global supply chains, and through a combination of group and individual mentoring, bring your business into a truly global context. Both programs will run from March 2016. To learn more about the program, see the flyers on your table and come along to the Identify Your Opportunity in Resources session on the 9th of February 2016. While you're here, as I mentioned earlier, please take the opportunity to talk with any of the RESA staff, Stuart, Paula, Phil, or Robert Krebsky from AusMine. Sorry, you're on my table. I'm going to keep looking for you. For information, and keep an eye on your email inbox for more information, which will be distributed shortly. Could I once again thank the speakers, thank everyone for attending, and we really hope to see you at the next RESA event. That ends the formalities for this morning's breakfast.